welcome to Hometown Happenings. I'm Carol McCarthy with Rick Floating here at Sound Shop. He, along with his wife Barb, are closing shop in downtown Detroit Lakes after 3 decades in the area.
3 decades plus.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, first, Rick, how did you get into the record store business?
Well, when I got out of the service, I went to electronics school, and I was a technician, mainly servicing equipment at a music shop, stereo shop, and did some service. That was in Minneapolis, and I moved up to Alec and did the same thing, and I worked at KXRA Radio as a technician, engineer, part-time, and the stereo shop there. And the owner of it, Neil Berg, he knew of a shop here in DL that had just closed, went out of business, and he asked me if I wanted to come up and run a store, and I said yes. That was in '76.
Okay, all right. So at that time, of course, the vinyl was probably the main selling item?
Yeah, we sold a lot of stereo equipment mainly, though, initially, because that was big. We sold a lot of stereo equipment, then some records, and of course 8-tracks and cassettes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so throughout the years, of course, you were in various locations in Detroit Lakes. Let's talk about some of those locations.
Well, when we started, we were up at the corner of 10 and Washington, where Keith Edwards has his insurance, the bank building. So we spent, well, I'm not sure exactly how many years, 3-4 years there probably. And that was a good location, but you didn't get any foot traffic. It was way at the end. So then we rented a storefront on the other side of the street. Milt Swedberg owned the building, right next to Norby's, and then we were there for probably 15 years plus. And that was a good location. But then Norby's bought that building, and Milt owned this one at the time, so he said, well, we'll move you over here. And I said, that's fine. And this is an excellent location. It has a crosswalk, handicap parking in front, nice windows. Mm-hmm. And it's been a real good location here for us. Mm-hmm.
Well, and the fact that Detroit Lakes has a record store, you know, that was just another perk to living in this community, I think, because not too many communities have their own record store.
Right. Well, that's true. There's getting to be fewer of this type of store, and I've always felt bad whenever any independent store would close downtown, whether it's selling records or shoes or whatever, you know, because they're unique. They all look different. They all have a different feel to them, and I feel kind of good about what we've done with this store over the years.
Yes, and you know, to be in business for 3 decades is an amazing feat in this day and age.
Well, you've got to find ways. You got to do things that the box stores, for instance, don't do. And we got into a lot of commercial sound. We used to do a lot of churches and schools and that type of thing. And we've always done service on equipment. And of course, that's something that you won't get at a larger store. Usually they just sales, but we'd go out and install.
Okay. All right. So being in downtown, you know, in Detroit Lakes with a record store and sound service, you know, do you have any stories or any people that kind of stick out in your mind throughout the decades? You know, any famous people have walked into your store?
No, not really. The only one that everybody would know. And when I first came up here, I didn't realize that Bobby V had a connection here in town. So one day I didn't recognize him. He came in. I was at the corner up here then. And he bought a pair of speakers, and he pulled out this big business check, and I said, Bobby V, well, that's cool.
Excellent. Yes. So, you know, throughout the years, too, I mean, talk about a little bit about the progression of going from, you know, the record albums and 8-track tapes to cassettes to CDs, and now we have the MP3 players.
Right. Well, it was kind of a split, you know, 8-tracks and cassettes, but cassettes were superior in my mind, and we sold cassettes right up until just about till the CD was introduced, along with records. The 8-tracks went out, but the cassettes were strong. And then when CDs came, it was kind of a hard time in a way, because then you had another format to stock, and they were still making the new records and the CDs, and then the cassettes kind of went by the wayside. But I liked records so much, I never quit selling them. And they just about quit making them, but we kept buying and selling used. And then in the last few years, they make a number of new releases on record, and they do today. So it's kind of a specialty market, but it's fun.
All right. And as far as repairing equipment too, I mean the stereos and the needles and everything. I mean, is it harder? I'm sure it got harder to find parts for those.
Well, not only that, the equipment got more reliable. So you didn't have as much service on stereo equipment like you had in the 70s, and now they're really reliable, and so that kind of service had kind of went down. But we still have a bunch of old phonograph needles. People come in with, in fact, I've got a lady today I've got to call back because she brought in a model number for a 20, 30-year-old Magnavox. I've got to look that up yet.
Well,
I might have the needle.
And we have a couple turntables at KDLM still. I mean, I still like to spin records. I think that that love will never die. But.
Right. I agree. A lot of people, and I tell you one thing, they have a hard time parting with them because they have so many memories with them, because when you listen to records, you'd sit down and you'd read the liner notes, and they had great artwork on record albums. So they're... in fact, when we've got a record that's bad, really bad, but the sleeve is okay, well, there they are. There's a box of just sleeves because people will buy those just for the artwork.
Sure.
So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, I remember my brother brought home a Bruce Springsteen, the Born to Run album, and I immediately took out the sleeve and looked at all the lyrics.
Yeah,
It's a good way to memorize music.
Yeah, right. I agree.
All right, I'm here with Rick Floating from the Sound Shop, who he and his wife are closing their doors after 3 decades of business here in Detroit Lakes, and we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have Barb come in and give some of her parting thoughts and more from Rick here at the Sound Shop in downtown Detroit Lakes. Welcome back to Hometown Happenings. Carol McCarthy here with Barb and Rick Floating from the Sound Shop here in Detroit Lakes. They're closing their doors after 3 decades of selling records and fixing equipment here in the Lakes area. And Barb, I wanted to get some of your comments on your experience here at the Sound Shop.
Well, I am not much of a retailer, but it's been fun meeting a lot of people in the area. Otherwise, I don't get out all that much.
Okay. All right. So, what are your plans now after you leave the Sound Shop?
Well, I've got motorcycles to ride and fix, and gardening, and reading, and fishing, and I'll probably do a little repair.
Okay.
Yeah, and Barb, she's going to do some video and audio transferring. We've done a lot of that here too.
Okay.
So we can do some of that at home, and Barb's a reader, and we've got cats to take care of.
Okay. Excellent. Does that sound pretty good to you, Barb?
That sounds really good, and I'll keep Rick really busy.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I know we're definitely going to miss the presence of the Sound Shop. Did anybody ever inquire, or was it ever in the plan to sell to somebody else the record shop, or it's just not in the future of,
Well, more of them are going out than coming in. It would have to be redone. This type of store is, it's a little tough.
Yeah.
But I just want to say before we leave, I want to thank all the people that have come in and I've got to be friends with and customers, and it's helped us to stay in business all these years.
All right, and if people can catch up to you on your motorcycle, you can always say thanks to Rick and Barb as well for their great store here in downtown Detroit Lakes. And so I want to thank you. It's just been a great presence in our community, being able to come into a record store, and it's always a unique business to the Detroit Lakes and an end of an era here in Detroit Lakes as the Sound Shop closes its door. With Rick and Barb Floating, I'm Carol McCarthy, TV3 Hometown Happenings.